Welcome back. You're watching Your World at 10. Now, coming back to the top story of the day, the termination of the Hero-Honda joint venture and the lack of detail regarding the deal's financials. Joining us to talk about this are Abizar Diwanji, Executive Director at KPMG, and Sandeep Parekh, he's former Executive Director of SEBI and the founder of FinSec Law Advisors. Abizar, Sandeep, thank you very much for joining me at this late hour. So what we do know about this deal is that Hero will buy Honda's 26% stake in a phased manner, and that there is a new licensing agreement between Hero Honda and Honda that will help sustain competitiveness of Hero Honda. We had envisaged several different structures, and I would have loved to talk to you about them, except that there is absolutely no detail available with regards to the rest of this transaction. Sandeep, do you find the lack of detail surprising? Yes, but not really violative of anything.
Yes, I think the only thing which kind of concerns me is if it's the shares are being sold below market price as it is rumored to be, and the company is paying a higher royalty. I think there is an area of concern, and therefore I think a slightly higher standard of disclosure would have been more appropriate in a case like this. So I think that's kind of my only area of concern. Otherwise, an agreement between two shareholders may not trigger any requirements.
All right, Abizar, do you agree that an agreement between two shareholders does not trigger any sort of reporting requirement till the actual transactions happen? And when does the reporting requirement kick in really? Because we don't know if these are going to be off-market transactions or on-market transactions. There are lots of unknowns in this. If it's off-market, will we ever know? If it's on-market, will we ever know? When do we get to know?
Yeah, see, one is I think the opportune time would have been now itself, at least to come out with some broad parameters, unless they have not yet agreed them. So I think once they agree them is the right time for disclosure. And the reason is that there could be an arrangement where shares would be sold at a particular price, I don't know higher or lower, but at a particular price, and then there is with the same party contemporaneously an agreement to pay royalties. So obviously it does spark a comment in people's minds that is the profit and loss, is the P&L of Hero Honda going to pay part of the consideration? I think that question that lingers in the minds of stakeholders need clarification, and as and when the company is ready with the answer, I guess they should disclose everything immediately.
No, but what do you mean by as and when? Are you working on the presumption that maybe they don't have a price and a royalty fee in mind right now, and therefore they have not disclosed it? Because with regards to the royalty fee, we were told in the press conference today that yes, there will be a royalty fee, but it will be in line of what is being paid currently or even lower. In fact, Mr. Munjal said that it will start to decline from January next year, but he did not give us a number with regards to that, Abizar. So you're working on the presumption that the number has not been decided? What if it has been decided and it has not been disclosed?
Yeah, it would be speculative of me to say it has been decided, because I wouldn't know. But just as a philosophy, I think as and when it is decided, so if it has already been decided, then now is the better time than any time else. Ideally, when it is decided, it's best to come out with the clarifications of the whole deal, which includes the contemporaneous transactions of the royalty payment as well as the share sale, and to explain why is one not interdependent on the other. That would be good governance, and I don't think anything is required, but that would be good governance.
Sandeep, if the details have not been finalized, then I can understand they were not disclosed, which the two parties could have very well said in the press conference today that we're still working towards the final numbers. All we have decided on is the broad framework of an MOU. But what they did say was instead that we're not going to share any financial detail. I'm not trying to read between the lines, but my question to you is, when do we actually find out?
I would say, since this is going to be a paper which is going to be exempt from the takeover regulations, this because as an inter-se promoter transfer, it has to be below 125% of the market price. So the market rumors are substantially below 100% of the market price, which again I think it goes back to the question of if it's just another transaction. I don't think anybody really cares all that much. But if it is a transaction which is being subsidized by the company in terms of higher royalty payments, because I actually read the press release and it's very, very ambiguous. After reading the press release by the two companies, I am a little skeptical whether the company is actually subsidizing the transaction between two shareholders.
What is the pricing that you refer to, Sandeep? Sorry, can you take us through that again? Is this the mandated pricing with regards to interstate transfers?
So if you want an exemption from the takeover regulations, you have to have you cannot have a transaction in which one shareholder is paying another shareholder any more than 125% of the market price. Now, clearly, I think the rumor...
more, but there is no bottom to this.
It has to be less. Yeah, it has to be less. It can be 5%, it can be 20%, and rumors are that it's 50% of the market price. So it can be anywhere less than 125%.
Up to less, so the floor is less than 125% of the current market price.
Yeah, the cap is 125%. Can be anywhere below that.
Okay, the cap is so it's if the market price was 100, you could pay what between 100 and 225?
125 and 0. Between 125 and 0.
125 and 0. Sorry, it took me a little time to catch on to it. Must be the late hour. If they do this as an on-market transaction, then when do they have to report the interstate sort of transfers, and will they have to report price in that, Sandeep?
Yes, if it's whether it's a bulk deal or a block deal, really, on the day of the transaction, they would have to disclose it. And also they'll have to disclose the price to SEBI when they seek exemption. So again, that won't be public domain, but they will have to come out with that number at that point of time.
But for block deal, bulk deals, they will have to inform the exchanges, and that is public information.
Right, and that does become public information.
That does become public information. All right. Abhisar, do you think it could be that they didn't disclose the price, not because they don't necessarily know it, but the transaction price of those block deals, bulk deals, where if it's on market or even if it's off market, is benchmarked to a current market price of sorts, and they didn't want to give away, any information that could influence the stock price as of now? I'm just thinking off the top of my hat. Tell me if it makes any sense to you.
Well, I think if they are going to do a deal which is now and if at some point in time, I don't think price concealment would be reason enough not to disclose the nexus between the transactions.
Okay.
I think in all clarity they should come out, because apparently there is a nexus, and that will anyway impact the stock price negatively.
All right, we don't know if there is a nexus. We don't know if there is a nexus, Abhisar. If there is a nexus, they should have announced it today. Since they haven't announced it today, are we supposed to assume there is no nexus?
No, but there is a presumption that there is a nexus.
But the presumption is on our part. Hero Honda could very well turn around and say it's your presumption, not my disclosure to make.
Yeah, that's what. So, as governance should ideally come right from the spirit of it. And if there is an inkling that such a transaction could be questioned, it's best to be open about it. That's really what governance is about.
All right, both of you are talking the governance language. Let me talk about the material information and the disclosure of material information language. And this has to do with the licensing agreement. One part of it is royalty. The other part is they have mentioned that there will be a new licensing agreement, and they've given some elements of it, not in great detail, but some elements. But then they've also said the company and the brand name to be changed over time. What that over time is, we don't know. I would think both the royalty payment as well as the change in company and brand name, this is material information, and therefore if they have decided upon it, then they should have disclosed it today, shouldn't they have, Sandeep?
I think so. So long as it relates to the company, I think if it's material, they should disclose it promptly. And of course, promptly is nowhere defined, but would say the same day or the next day. So I think I find the press release being very ambiguous, and I think a lot of details should have been forthcoming, because shareholders are very, very interested in these details, and these are not secret details. They're bound to come out at some point of time.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to go one step ahead and say I understand that in interstate transfers, one doesn't necessarily need to detail sort of price, etc. But in this case, this is the dissolution of a joint venture that has, been around for now 20-30 years. So it is a material impact, even if it is a transaction between two sets of promoters, and therefore they don't necessarily need to tell us. They should have told us. Abhisar, do you believe that the violation with regards to the lack of information on material issues can be something that this deal could be questioned on?
Absolutely, and I think it will be questioned on it.
All right, gentlemen, since we don't have any more information, I've run out of questions, so I'm going to leave it there. Sandeep, Abhisar, thank you for joining me at this late hour. I can hear a child crying in the background, so clearly I have disturbed you whilst at home. Thank you very much for joining us on Your World at 10.